People ask me all the time, I lack discipline. How can I get discipline in my life? And no one wants to hear this answer. No one wants to hear it. The goals have to align. They have to align. And furthermore, they will align. If you're not very confident, as you get experience and as you go through things in life, your confidence can increase.
Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men. All my life, like 9 to 9. For my top 10, top 10, 9 to 9. This one's for my top 10.
Need motivation?
What's the top 10 with the Believe Nation?
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and this channel was created to help you overcome the #1 challenge that is holding you back, a lack of belief in yourself. You watch these videos because you know there's something more inside you too. You have Michael Jordan level talent at something. So get ready to have a strict sleeping schedule, pick up the slack, and get in the game now with Jocko Willink and my take on his top 10 rules of success to give you the confidence, motivation, and belief that you need. Enjoy. Okay, let's kick it off with rule number 1. Have a strict sleeping schedule.
From my perspective, when people ask me all the time, I lack discipline. How can I get discipline in my life? And no one wants to hear this answer. No one wants to hear it.
Just do it.
One of the first steps you can take to impose discipline in your life is to wake up early in the morning. Because let's face it, when the alarm goes off, you got your head on that soft pillow. It's all nice and cozy and warm in there. You do not feel like getting up. And so he
doesn't even have a snooze alarm. He doesn't ever hit the snooze alarm.
Yep. You too? And you should not. You should not. That snooze alarm is...
That's insane.
I call that snooze alarm the dream killer. Like when you press that snooze button, you're killing your dreams. So don't touch the snooze button. Now
some would say that might be a little extreme.
No, where people get worried and people freak out is sleep is healthy. Sleep is good for you. I know that. I get it. And people say, you're telling people not to sleep. No, I'm not telling people not to sleep.
You do 6 hours every night, 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I usually go to bed around 10:30, 11, and I wake up at 4:30. So I get 5.5 to 6 hours almost every night, and sometimes I tell people, I think sleeping is good. I do it almost every single day. So, but people will freak out and say, you're telling people to be unhealthy. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not, if you need, different people have different genetic needs for sleep. I'm one of those people that doesn't need much. Of my 4 kids, my oldest daughter needs even less sleep than I do. My middle daughter sleeps more like my wife. My son's somewhere in the middle, which, by the way, that means my middle daughter, she gets out of bed when you get her out of bed in the morning. She likes to sleep. So I'm not telling people, hey, don't sleep. But I am saying put yourself on a schedule. And you ask why I don't sleep in. If I sleep in on a Saturday until 6 o'clock, that night I'm going to have more energy. And instead of going to bed at 10:30 or 11, I'm going to stay up until midnight because I got a little bit extra sleep. Well, now that next day I'm going to sleep in a little bit more. Now all of a sudden Sunday I'm sleeping in until 7 o'clock. Now Sunday night I can't go to bed until 1 o'clock in the morning, and you see where I'm going with this. I go into Monday with a lack of sleep because I couldn't fall asleep. So the most important thing is set a good wake up time that works for you, where you get enough sleep, and then wake up that time every day if you can.
Rule number 2, pick up the slack.
When you got somebody that's weak or ineffective leader or a poor leader, the answer is always the same. What you do is you lead. You lead yourself. And I hope people that listen to the podcast on the regular, you all knew what I was going to say there. You all know that when someone is not leading you, then you lead them. You pick up the slack for the weakness. My leader doesn't want to come up with a plan? Cool, I will. My leader doesn't want to give a brief? That's fine, I will. My leader doesn't want to mentor the younger troops? That's okay, I will do it. Leader doesn't want to take the blame when something goes wrong? That's fine with me. I'm going to take the blame. And you think about that one can be tricky because you think, well, I'm going to look bad in front of the more senior boss. Now think about it from the senior boss's position. If you work for me, Echo, and the boss comes in and the mission was a failure, and I'm the guy that's in charge, and I say, sorry, boss, we failed. It was Echo's fault. And Echo goes, hey, sir, it was my fault. Here's what happened. Here's the mistakes I made, and here's what I'm going to do to fix it next time. Who do you respect more?
Yeah.
Of course, I'm looking to promote you.
Yep.
I actually want to promote you, and I want to fire myself for being a guy that's passing the buck and passing the responsibility and not taking ownership of anything. So imagine what that looks like. Before you get all intimidated by taking the blame for something and think you're going to look bad and think you're going to get fired, think about what it looks like from the senior perspective. And you actually have to imagine what it will look like underneath you. You have to see it from your perspective, because it's even when you think about their perspective, you still can be in fear of it. You think, oh, I'm the guy that's taking the blame. I'm the one that's going to get fired. No.
Rule number 3, get in the game now.
How do you avoid feeling discouraged when you realize how much of your life you wasted when you're not getting after it? Do you ever worry that you won't achieve your full potential because you wasted time?
As far as discouragement goes from not having gotten on the path earlier, do I feel that way? Would I feel that way? Negative. Don't. No. Okay, you were a little late getting in the game. But I'll tell you what, 26 years old, is that what we're talking about? 26? Yeah, at 26 years old, you're a youngin'.
Very much.
You're a youngin'. But I'll tell you what, even if you were 40 or 50 or 60 or 70, doesn't matter. You're in the game now, and that's what counts. And all those quote unquote wasted years, they weren't wasted, right? They're not wasted because you learned. And specifically, what did he learn about? Learned about what it's like to be out of shape. Learned about what it's like to be overweight. Learned about what it's like to be weak. And the knowledge that you learned about those things is fuel to make sure that it never happens again.
Rule number 4, have humility.
Everyone has certain innate capabilities, right? And some of them may be stronger than others. And some capabilities that you have tend to make you a better leader. And there's a bunch of them, right? So, some people are naturally articulate. Right? There's some people that have a natural level of confidence. Those are really good things to have if you're a leader. Some people can look at complex problems and they can kind of simplify those complex problems. And those are very good skills for a leader to have, to be articulate, to be confident, to be able to simplify things. Those are great skills for a leader to have. And different people have different levels of those skills. So I'm sure you've known people in your life that weren't very articulate. So they didn't really get that skill. Or some people that lack confidence, and they can be super smart. They can even be articulate, but they lack confidence. There's some people, being able to simplify is a good skill to have, but usually people remember, instead of people that were able to simplify things well, a lot of times instead people remember individuals that really made things complicated. You ever work with somebody that takes something and just makes them complicated? So
you're like, shut up, can we just do it?
Yes. So those are different skill levels that a human being will have. And you got born with what you got born with. And maybe it got nurtured a little bit along the way. It improved a little bit. And so you can take those skills, and if you're not very articulate, you can read and you can speak and you can write and you can become more articulate. If you're not very confident, as you get experience and as you go through things in life, your confidence can increase. And as you continue as a leader to look at complex problems, you can get better at solving those problems and simplifying them. So there's ways to improve your leadership capability. And that's what I do for a living, is work with companies and work with leaders to improve their leadership capability. And that can happen pretty much across the board. Now, the reason there's a caveat to that is one of the most important characteristics for a leader to have is humility. Because if you lack humility, well, you don't think you need to be any more articulate because, you're already good enough. And
you don't need team members.
You don't even need anyone to give you any input because you already know everything. So the person that lacks humility is not going to become any better of a leader.
Also, if you want to have more confidence and self-love, check out my 254 series. They're free. The links to join are in the description below.
People want to know how to stop the laziness, and they want to know how to stop the procrastination. And I looked at him and I said, I'm not a brand. I'm a person. Self-discipline comes from the self. It comes from you.
Rule number 5, find balance.
The goals have to align. They have to align. And furthermore, they will align. That is, now you might have to go pretty high up the chain to make this happen, or you might have to dig pretty hard to make that happen. But this is a great example, right? The example is making money versus making an impact. And I'm going to tell you that those two actually align. How do they align? Well, let me explain. If your company makes more money, they will have a bigger impact, right? They will have a bigger impact. So let me break it down a little bit more. So if you want to have a big impact on a client, right? And so what you do is you spend so much time and so much money with that client, with that customer, you're going to realize that the company, if you invest that much to a client or to a customer, you invest that much time and that much money, your company's going to go out of business. Now, how much impact are you having with that client? The answer is zero. Now, sometimes the opposite happens. And this is probably what the question is related to. For instance, if we, as a company, we start cutting corners on quality, we start cutting corners on customer service, or whatever the case may be, we might make more money in the short term.
Oh, like to save money.
Yeah,
kind
we
of thing.
save money. You know what? We were supposed to have 10 people answering phones. We're going to fire 6 of them. We're going to have 4 left. That means everyone's waiting on the phone.
Right.
So now we don't have good customer service. Now we're starting to write a Yelp review. I was on hold for 14 hours. I hate this company, right? This happens. This is what happens. This is the example. So now up the chain of command. So before it was, look, we need 30 people in the call center to answer the phone. Mm-hmm. And that way everybody gets an answer within 30 seconds when they call in and when customer calls in. Okay, we're out of business in a month because we can't afford 30 people, so now we have no impact. Mm-hmm. The other end of the spectrum is we have 3 people in the call center responding to phone calls. Everyone has to wait an hour. Now everyone hates our company. We also have no impact.
Yeah.
So the goals have to be aligned at some case. But the thing is, it is a balancing act. It's between expenditures for the cost to produce or the cost to provide service. And you've got to keep that as low as possible so that money is made, but you can't go so low that quality and customer service and follow-on business and customer relations, you can't go so low that it gets destroyed. Restaurant business is a really easy, simple one to understand because the quality of the food that we get and the quality of the chefs that we have, the more it costs to buy the food, the good food, and the higher quality chef and cook and help we have, the better the food's going to be. Well, all that stuff costs more money. So you got to find if you have a restaurant where it's the best hamburger in the world, it's $84. You're not going to have a line at that place. You have impact because you're having the best burger in America. Guess what? You're not going to be in business to have your impact is going to be zero. Other side of the spectrum, salmonella poisoning because you're buying cheap stuff. You cut refrigeration costs and that's, guess what? You're going out of business too. Yeah. So the goals are aligned at the end of the day because profit equals growth. Growth equals impact.
Rule number 6, have a flexible plan.
Do as much planning as you can. Dig in and plan every detail that you can plan. Now, when it does come to planning, I think the most important part of a plan, the thing that makes a plan the most effective, is its flexibility. And making a plan that is so flexible that when you do the actual operation and you come up against unexpected things, which are absolutely going to happen, you have the flexibility, you have options, you have contingency plans to deal with. Make a plan and go, and that comes back again to flexibility. If you come up with a good plan and you go, as that plan is being executed, you got to pay attention. You got to pay attention and watch how it's unfolding. And don't put the blinders on and you've got your plan and now we're going to go and we're not going to look around anymore. We're just going to follow the plan. No, you have to be observant. You have to observe, orient, decide, and act the whole time. You can't just come up with a plan and stay on that track because when you come up with a fast plan, you're not going to have thought about every single detail. And you don't know what the enemy's going to do anyways. You don't know what your competitor's going to do. You can't guarantee that. So when you see them start to react to what you executed, now you got to be ready to react yourself and get the upper hand and take the offensive.
Rule number 7, have a clear purpose.
All this stuff happened, right? But the goal, really the reason for me doing all this is still the same through the whole thing. And that is that I want to help people. I want to help people with something that the lessons that I've learned, I want to help them. So how can I do that? Well, you write them down. Okay, you wrote it down so people can read it. Great. How else can you help them? Oh, you can make a podcast so people can access it easily and cheaply. Cool, here you go. So the underlying goal, I want people to be healthy. Well, what's a good way to be healthy? Stop drinking Monster energy drinks. Stop drinking Red Bull 12 a day and start drinking something that's healthier. Oh, okay, cool. Jocko white tea, next thing you know. That's what we've got going on. So that's been my goal. And I haven't really, even though I strayed from what maybe the original path I thought I was going to take, I still stayed, my reason is the same. And I think that's what I'm saying. When your reason is clear and your purpose is clear, that's going to make your drive clear, and that's going to make you execute well because you know where you're going, you know where you want to be, you understand your purpose and why you're doing something, and that's what's going to help you be successful, in my opinion.
Do you think that like how, people, they'll be like, this is my why, and it'll be like their kids or something like that. Do you think that falls within this? Like, like reason, purpose, and all this stuff? Yeah,
I think that's the same general. The guy could have said purpose, reason, cause, why. I think that the question could have said that. I think that if your purpose is your kids, really clear example, right? And a lot of people might say that, well, that's cool, but you're going to have to clarify that a little bit more, because if your purpose is your kids, then quit your job and just spend all day with your kids. Well, then obviously you're not supporting your kids because now you can't afford to buy them food.
Yeah, it's like it seems like there's a lot of different.
So your goal should be taking good care of and providing for your children's now and in the future. Wow, okay, now that makes sense. Now you're looking long term, short term. You know that you have to work hard now. You don't have to make investments for them. So that's the kind of thing. That's beyond just a simple, I'm doing this for my kids. Because what are you doing for your kids? What are you trying to achieve for them?
Rule number 8, be open-minded.
Leif and I wrote the book. I had no intention of writing a book. That kind of happened, because people were asking us, and as we worked with businesses, they said, you have this stuff written down. So we ended up writing the book. Once we wrote it, we thought maybe we'd be handing it out when we go and work with companies. Literary agents saw it today. Let me show this to some publishers. Publishers saw it, said, let us publish this. Okay, so you figure you're going to publish it. Well, even when you publish a book, you don't expect that a bunch of people are going to read it. You expect that you're going to have a book published, and that's cool. But it ended up doing really well. So that kind of happened. With that, all of a sudden I was on a couple of podcasts. Well, I didn't have any intention. When I went on Tim Ferriss's podcast, I didn't say to myself, this is going to propel me into my own podcast. Or Joe Rogan's podcast, I didn't say, now, Joe Rogan's going to launch me into the podcast world. No. I didn't expect that, but it happened. And you know what? It happened. It made sense to me. Okay, these two guys are squared away. They're squared away in this particular genre, and they're recommending. My mind is open. Okay, let's try and make a podcast. Did I know that the podcast was going to be super popular? No, I just thought we were making a podcast so that, the few people would want to listen to it. Cool. Then look what happens. Next thing you know, we're making tea. Next thing I'm making tea. I had no idea that tea would be part of my world.
Rule number 9, modulate your leadership.
It's not black and white. You don't go into some units. It's not like you're going to get a choice between a unit that's doing horrible and a unit that's doing great. You're going to get everything in between. And therefore, you have to modulate your leadership to reflect. If it's a group that might have a tendency of being a little bit jacked up and they're getting close, guess what? Gotta be maybe not sweeping changes, but you might need to make a little statement.
Right.
If it's a group that's performing awesome, fantastic, top team, top whatever, you might need to come and say, hey guys, I see that you're doing great. I'm here to just keep you guys doing what you're doing. Let me know what you need to support. Boom. And it could be anywhere in between that spectrum. That's why leadership is challenging. Because you got to have nuance. You got to be able to modulate.
Yeah.
You got to figure out where that is.
Yeah.
And you got to test it out too. Once you give that sweeping order, you got to see what kind of reaction you got. You know, you got to see, did people just instantly rebel? Okay, then let's talk this. Let's get some feedback. What's going on? Clearly, we have a disrespect scenario going on. We need to get to the bottom of this. Let me get some key leaders in here. Let me talk to them and get some feedback, which you should do that before you make any sweeping changes anyway. You got to at least talk to the key leadership, get them in the game, get them on board.
And rule number 10, the last one before a very special bonus clip, is control your emotions.
I don't overreact to a lot of stuff, because that is the best way to be. I'm not saying to be a robot. I'm not saying you should have no emotions and you should never show any. I'm not saying that, but you should have some control over those emotions, especially from a leadership perspective. When somebody says something to you that's traumatic or is going to cause a disturbance or it's going to cause problems, immediately think to yourself, okay, picture that you're being recorded and you're going to have to watch the play-by-play later with your team and look at how much you lost your temper or how much you got frazzled and what a disaster you were. I'm just going to listen. I'm going to assess. I'm going to make decisions and move forward.
Now I have a special bonus clip from Jocko on how to stick to your plan that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the 3-point landing questions. Let's go from just watching a video to taking action. Here we go. Question number 1. Where do you need to better control your emotions? Number 2, what does balance look like for you? And number 3, how can you create a strict sleeping schedule? And if you made it this far in the video, I want to celebrate you. Give me a hashtag believe down in the comments as well.
Even though I'm saying you got to adapt your plan and you need to adjust as things happen, you also want to stick to your plan. Those things are completely the opposite of each other, right? I'm saying adapt and change your plan as needed, but I'm also telling you to stick to your plan. But for instance, if you rehearsed or if you have a standard operating procedure for your order of patrol, so this is the order of, you know, the point man, and it's Jones and then Smith and then Washington and then Jefferson, and that's your order of patrol, right? And those guys are always marching in that order, and so we know each other. We know how to work together. We have fire team integrity. We have a standard operating procedure, and we're going to attack a target. And when we get closer to the target, we see that, hey, you know what? Maybe it'd be better to move this guy over here and move this guy over here. And so let's change our standard order of march, our standard patrolling order, because it'll be easier when we get to the target. Don't do that. Don't do that. You have your standard operating procedures for a reason. You have them, and when you start pulling yourself out of the standard operating procedures for no good reason, that's going to come back and bite you. It's not going to work out good. So be flexible. This is going to be an interesting statement. Be flexible, but stick to the plan. But be ready to adjust, but stick to the plan. And that's totally contradictory. And I know that. And I apologize. But that is what leadership is. Leadership is balancing those dichotomies, and leadership is knowing when, hey, we've stayed with our standard operating procedure. We're going to hold through it through this little thing right here. You know, there's a little small terrain feature we didn't expect. We could change our plan right now and adapt to that in the unlikely event that, or the small chance that something happens and we'll be better for it at that moment. No, stay with your standard operating procedure. But then when something dramatic happens and you need to make a change, you do it aggressively, you do it dynamically. And then you continue to observe, orient, decide, and act, and keep beating the enemy inside the OODA loop.
If you want to see the top 10 I did on David Goggins, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
The most important conversation you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself.
There's a voice that guides you through life. When sometimes it's guiding you in a direction that you don't want to go,